Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Northern Showcase. We look forward to spending the next hour with you. I'm Penny Olorenshaw, a former stage manager and now Webflow developer in Trenton, Ontario, and I handle communications for No Code North.
Hey, I'm Maggie Monso. I'm a Webflow developer based in Toronto with a background in film and television. In our No Code North group, I take care of our designs and our gather space.
And I'm Jeremy LaRue, a low-code and no-code developer from Vancouver. And on the No Code North team, I am the resident automations guy and runner of the streams.
Our mission at No Code North is twofold: to build a community of Canadian Webflowers and no-code enthusiasts, and second, to showcase Canadian talent to the rest of the world. We meet Fridays at noon Eastern in the Lodge, our gather space, and once a month we host the Northern Showcase here on YouTube.
Let's see who's all out here today. Hi, it's Adam, and Baltazar's here. If you're here watching us on YouTube, say hello in the chat. It's great to see everyone. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat, and we'll get to them through the interview, or we also have time for Q&A at the end.
Yomi and Andy are here too. Hey.
Excellent. And Baltazar, we met along with our guest today when we were at Webflow Chicago. So it's exciting that we've got you both here. And we had some great conversations back then.
We were just talking about him with Dale before this started, actually.
Dale Janzen is the founder of Third Story Creative and a longtime member of the Webflow community. With over 30 years of experience, his knowledge of design tools spans from the analog days of drawing boards and rubber cement to the more recent era of Figma boards. At the core of his work, creating value for his clients, no matter the tool. Please help us welcome Dale. Hey, Dale.
Hey, Dale.
Hi, all. Nice to see you.
Welcome to the showcase.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Jeremy, it looks like I jumped on your comment about how we all met. So why don't you go ahead and describe how we all met?
At Webflow Conf in Chicago last October, right? Last October. And I have known you digitally before that, but this was the first time to meet in person, which was awesome. The in-persons, you can't beat that.
Yeah, that was really great. And I feel like we've seen you around, and I know you keep saying that you've been wanting to get more involved recently, but I feel like we've seen you around the community online for quite a while already. But yeah, like when we met you in Chicago, I feel like we knew you quite a bit already.
I've been around, I have been around, but I have not been much in terms of online presence, in terms of video. I've been in chats and all kinds of things for different, the client first people, the, FinSuite, all those kinds of, a lot of that kind of stuff. So, but being on video is a whole nother thing. So I have stepped up my game because I realize the value of community and participating, not just being part of, but participating in it actively. And this is that latest step in that way.
That's awesome.
So, Dale, I think one of the things that we were all surprised at, having met you in Chicago and connected with you in various places online, is that you're actually Canadian.
I am Canadian, yes, and still was born in Canada, in Saskatchewan, actually. Spent some years in Ontario, about 40 miles, I call them miles, east or west of, along the river, west of Ottawa. And in 1966, came here with my family and been generally here ever since.
Right, but you're still actually
Canadian citizen.
But you're still a Canadian citizen. This is great. Excellent. And that's why you're here, because most people probably know you as a guy in the Chicago area. But that's why I mean,
I'm sorry, but no code. I'm saying No Code North. That's me. So I had to check it out.
Excellent. All right, Maggie, do you want to take it away here on the?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like when we started No Code North, I chatted to a lot of people that were south of our border, but felt like they could relate because north enough. I'm like, oh, can I be part of No Code North because I'm, that far up. I'm in Chicago. Or
Sure.
Yeah, in today's conversation, I wanted to talk more about design, because we usually at No Code North, we talk a lot about no code, low code, automations, and sometimes a bit less about design, which is so much at the core of everything we do. I mean, we translate those designs. And I thought it'd be interesting because you have experience in design that spans at least a couple of decades, maybe. I thought it'd be interesting to talk about about the evolution of branding a little bit in conjunction with what tools are at the time, or what is going on in society at a specific time. And maybe to illustrate that, I'm gonna bring in an image here to start this conversation. So everyone knows Apple, and I thought it'd be interesting to look at how Apple has been the Apple logo. First off, I didn't know until I did that research that the 1976 was what it is. That's crazy, and so it's so hard to remember that was even the Apple logo. But if you look at the design of the logo and what was happening at the time, it's really shaped what they did with the logo. And I was wondering, even the first one is so 80s, and it's interesting even that with the more recent one, they went back to the 1998 logo, but the glass one, the chrome one, were all designed the way that they are because of the technology, the new technology and the company. So I think the 2007 Chrome logo is this way because of the new, I think it was the new iPod that was, or the new iPhone, I think, was more Chrome. So they decided to update their logo that way. But yeah, I'd love to start by talking about that a little bit.
I think it's interesting because technology and the tools that are available back, and it really goes back 45 plus years, not just 30 for me. And this was before software. But as software came in, it was all analog for me for a long time. But then when software came in, and that little Mac, which I have right there, was my first Mac. And I did catalogs, and I did other kinds of things on that. I can't believe we did it, but we did it on that. But before that, the transition from into software, from the analog world where I did one thing and created artboards and handed them off, and many other people touched them before there was a printed piece. Now, all of a sudden, over the years, we've been able to do all that work ourselves and control a lot more of the visual aesthetic and the parameters, design parameters of it too. I remember early on in my digital transition, I got Photoshop. At this time I was working at a small design firm, that design firm really helped shape my outlook on design, on branding. That whole thing just came to life during those times. But I got Photoshop. We got Photoshop at the design firm. There was no layers. It was basic. It was bitmapped. It was a little bit of grayscale and that kind of thing. And that's all it was. It was kind of crazy. But then all of a sudden, a few years later, up at I think it was Photoshop 3, layers came. And that, for me, changed everything, because I was doing drop shadows and doing this and textures and all kinds of things. And it really was heavy-handed Photoshop. That tool changed the way I designed because of what it made possible. And that you were talking about as well with the Apple logos. It reflected the aesthetic, the visual aesthetic of the time, but also the technological possibilities of the time.
Yeah, and you can see it, and oh, that's right. I have one that's very low quality. you can see and hear how some of the older logos wouldn't be possible with any earlier version of Photoshop.
Right, right. So it was mostly in the early days for me. It was mostly Quark Express, or I loved it when finally InDesign came and things started to look real on the screen. Those days were formulative, and it took a while in that transition to learn to think in terms of the tools, more so than in terms of the process of the analog that I was all involved. I knew that, but this was new, and it was exciting. But it did have an effect on the design studio that I was a part of. It grew the revenues. It did, as long as we were doing what we were doing for clients, the same clients we were doing analog things with, now all of a sudden we were able to do digital. They hopped on that. And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. As long as you can keep on okay, one interesting question I have is because as long as you can keep on top of the newest technologies, you're more hireable, but it seems like these days there's just so many new technologies, so much to learn. At the time, did it feel that way, or was it just learn Photoshop and you'll get more clients?
There wasn't as much choice of software like there is today. Many today that, and all of them are so kind of cool in their own way. At the time, it was only desktop publishing, or Quark, or it was InDesign, or it was this or that. And some of the more progressive people were using After Effects or Premiere, or things like that in video. We weren't so much, although we did get involved with Flash, and that was kind of fun. It was harder now. I think it's harder now for me to narrow down what it is that I want to use and incorporate more into my work than it was then, because the choices were so limited, and it did the basic stuff.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, because that technological leap that it took to work on screen versus, paper was a big deal for me.
Yeah. What so that was a jump, and Photoshop was a great new tool to use. Are there any, even like closer in time, but throughout your career, are there any other tools that have influenced your style at the time?
Back in those days?
Or throughout, for me, even Figma, that's recent, but that's really influenced the way that I work, or the style of the things that I do, just because of what's built with it. And
I started using Figma 3 months ago. I'm the last guy to do it, so you can close the door after me. But it was a revelation. It's a design tool, and I know Illustrator and that kind of thing, so I'm using that. And I'm thinking, this is cool, and I can take that and then don't have to go right into Webflow and do stuff and then have to redo it because I'm not, it's not working out or whatever. And that was not in the Webflow stuff I've done so far, which I love, by the way. I love Webflow. It's a harder way to work. I always thought, well, just get up there and do it and move things around. Figma's been, it's not really hard to learn as much as some of the older stuff was to me. But it's a much better process than just kind of, winging it.
Yeah, Figma is incredible. And it definitely, Photoshop and just the Adobe suite has a much harder learning curve than Figma does, I feel like. Although it does take a bit to really master Figma and the layouts, but yeah.
It does. But then I see what people are doing, right? In some of the current design tools like Figma, and even into Spline or some of the other kinds of things that, those programs, they all interest me.
Yeah, I wish I had
I think
more hours in my day so I could learn.
That's exactly right. It's really hard to, I'm trying to constantly narrow my focus and not so much learn these programs skin deep, enough to be dangerous, before I go on to the next one. I really need to focus in on things so that, especially the dev side of things these days, because that was someone else's thing to do when I was on the drawing board. I didn't do any dev. I just made layouts and gave them to someone else. So this is a whole different way of thinking. It has been a whole different way of thinking. And it really does influence. I can't believe the kinds of things, I'm coming to believe the kinds of things that are possible now, how people are pushing the software. I mean, it comes out and within weeks, people are doing some amazing things. I think it's different for people like myself who were born before the internet was public. And were designers before the internet was available to us to design. Then it is people that are born and the first thing they do is they start playing digitally and they do that kind of thing and they don't know the analog. I think those people, and I'm talking about the majority of people that we're talking to right now, understand that, well, maybe they don't understand how well they have it now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm not that young anymore. I definitely did not have computers growing up, and they didn't. Yeah, and in university, I was learning design the analog way as well, which is interesting. It's just good to have that base.
Yeah.
But going back to Figma for a second, you know what I love about Figma in terms of how it influences the industry is that I feel like Figma gives a connection between developers and designer that wasn't there before, because it really forces designers to think like developers. Yes. Because of the whole Flexbox, and I forget what it's called in Figma, but it's essentially Flexbox. In the chat, please tell me. It's just
auto layout.
Yeah, auto layout is Flexbox, and so it forces designers to think like developers, and it kind of forces developers to think like designers as well, to kind of tell them what they need, because sometimes what's in Figma isn't what we need for the website, and we have to figure out the blending modes and all these things. So it's been a really good influence that way. That's an incredible tool.
Yes, I agree. It is a result of the whole process being condensed and brought forward, so that designers are no longer just doing visual. They are, like you say, they're working with dev in mind, if they're not even dev first and then going aesthetic afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about branding a little bit, and
sure.
Let's talk about your business as well. But maybe we'll start with this more general one. But what do you, since your branding is your main thing, what do you wish that people knew about branding that you find that they usually generally don't?
I think the one thing that I keep coming back to is that the idea that you can create a brand and it's under your control and you put it out there and you're in charge of it is just not right. It's not true. And this is Marty Neumeier, a guy that I really, really respect in terms of branding, and there are many of them. But he says it's not what you say it is, it's what they say it is, and that's the marketplace. You can influence a brand presence, but in the minds and hearts and the lives of the people who actually use your product or are considering using it, or whatever their gut feel is about what you're doing, what this is, your company or your product or whatever, that's where it lives. And you don't get to tell them what to think. You can influence that brand perception, but it's much deeper than that. And so everything you do, brand identity and branding in general are two they're related, but they aren't exactly the same thing. A logo is not a brand. I mean, you've heard that a lot, and it's true. So that once I kind of got to that point where there's a bigger picture here, and I'm not trying as a designer to just do something fun, which is in the very early days, all I wanted to do, I had blinders on. I just wanted to do cool things. I realize now that there's a whole strategy here. The client is, if you're doing business to business, the client is not the end game. It's the market of that client. That's the end game.
Yeah.
And that's a whole revelation that changed the way I work.
Yeah, you don't do a branding or a website for your client. You're doing it for their client, really.
Correct. And that's a hard thing for clients to let go of. And it always has been in the work that I do as well. They want what they want, but they're not sure what their market wants.
Yeah. So how exactly do you involve your client in your process? Would you be able to show us what that looks like? And I forget if I'm bringing this PDF up or if you're, maybe I am. But yeah, could you walk us through a typical project and how you involve them into the process?
I would like to say that the clients that I have and work with kind of come to me, or somehow we get together, and they already have done some kind of work to this is what I need, this is what we have, it's not good enough, I want this perception, I want to influence it in this way. These are the things that we want to do. The brand process that I have for actually some slides to show is not exactly that. That is how I prefer to work. If the client is an active partner in terms of working these things out, and first of all is the strategy, and the strategy, you know, it comes in all shapes and sizes. Strategy does, just like clients do. Big agencies do big amounts of strategy and all kinds of things, and involve a lot of that's good for those clients. It's not necessary, I don't think, for everyone, but the point of the strategy and of how you are going to arrive to make this a successful brand is the same. It's just not always the same sheer volume. I can walk you through what I did for Jack's sauce. Is now the time to do that?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, it's just it's nice to have an actual demo. It's just I feel like people can relate better when you can present them something. Do you want me to bring up the PDF now, or?
Sure. Okay. This Jack sauce. Full disclosure: Jack sauce is my son, Eric. So I may be slightly biased. However, the cool thing about this as an example is that it goes from pre-brand discussion all the way up to where we are today. Actually, yesterday I was working on some things for him. And in bits and pieces over a period of time, it's evolving, and it's evolving to this day. This is July 16th, 2020. That's in the back of where we lived at the time. That is the first actual product and the first hang tag type thing. This is pre-brand, pre-anything. It was just people that he had done this barbecue sauce, the Memphis style and the Carolina style, the yellow and the red. Loved it. And this was during COVID. And it kind of was born out of that. He was at home a lot, and he loves to cook. And so he was doing all this stuff and about the sauce, and people were really digging it. And he was getting orders back way in the day. So he said, I can't sell it. I mean, I guess I can sell it, but I can't literally sell it without all the FDA stuff. So I will create samples, and you can buy my sample. So that's how he's working it, although that's changing now too. So this is, yeah, can you go to the next slide?
No, it's on your end from your browser. If you, you just.
There we go. Oh, come on.
Oh, no.
Hold on. Well, it worked before.
Boy.
Oh,
what if you refresh the page? We needed more practice, yeah. Oh, there you go. You got it.
There we go. Sorry. Okay, this is that hang tag. I purposely did it. I unbranded it. I didn't want to set something that we would have to change later you know, some kind of a visual thing. This is so bare bones, but we had fun with it. And all it is an invitation for the people to try this. If you like it, spread the word and keep coming back. We have something going here. After a while, I would say probably about a year and a half after this, we started for real putting a brand to this thing, a look and feel. I'm talking about a brand identity. We talked a lot, Eric and I, about what he wanted to do in terms of a business someday and what the end game would be for Jack's Sauce. So having done that amount of strategy, which is really skipping over it to a high degree, we ended up with this, which is the Jack's Sauce Co. Brand lockup, and also this tagline that we had bantered back and forth about, Back Jacks. So, and the other thing too with Back Jacks is that we also turn it around and say Jack's Backs, and then we partner with other companies and other that have something to do with barbecue or something to do with culinary things or equipment and all that kind of stuff as well. And it's kind of fun to do. It's kind of works well that way. But a logo, like I say, is not a brand, and we know that. So particular to what Eric was doing back in the COVID days, he had Janzen, his beagle, and he was whenever Eric was in the backyard and he was grilling or he was smoking putting meat in the smoker and all that kind of thing, Jax was with him. Janzen, we call him Jax. And so he became kind of the mascot, and we wanted to somehow figure out some way later on to use Jax as a mascot, just as a personal kind of a comfort symbol for Eric about this. It's just kind of a fun thing. So after that, and really the business cards are fairly recent, but these are things that we talked about and we sketched out and did some things with the business card and what he wanted to say and the look and feel of it. Then coasters, drink coasters, because with barbecue, you need something cold and refreshing. So these are things that are going to be created. They're prototypes right now, but they're not done. So it's just developing more in the look and feel and the brand presence. On from there, this goes back a ways. We decided that we wanted to, if this ever went to retail, and even if it didn't, we just wanted to have a visual representation of what was in the jar that was different than anyone else or almost anyone else, and decided one of the ways to do that is to just take some typographic license and put together different fonts that you wouldn't normally put together and just kind of create an aesthetic out of it, and had a lot of fun. And then in these first versions of these labels, we had just a little bit about what the sauce was and what you can do with it. That may not make it to the final, but in the original ones, it did. And then there's also, he's doing a series of rubs. Belly rub is one of them, and I can't remember the other name, but these are just how it evolves, how the look and feel evolves into something that's proprietary a little bit. When it got down to reality, he needed to put things in mason jars, like the first photo that you saw. And so mason jars have the ball logo, or at least the ones we had the ball logo, and it was rough corners, and you just couldn't put stickers on the side of the bottom. It didn't work out well. So we did a version of them and just put it on the top, which was kind of fun. People loved them. And to this day, that's what they are. But it has to change because bottles are coming. More cylindrical, and the labels are going to come back on the bottle. It's just it's a business decision in terms of cost and value, and it's also a practical one.
It's interesting here. I'm sorry to stop you for a second to see how not the tool, but the product itself is influencing the branding with the inability to be putting the label directly onto the jar. Kind of how with the Apple logo that we're showing at first, how the iPhone release was influencing the brand by bringing up like the chrome colors and feel.
Yeah.
Also, I love the colors because you can almost tell what's in a jar just by looking at the colors.
Well, that's the point.
Mm.
Absolutely. And even on the bottles that are coming, once this jar phase is over, you'll see a lot of the color of the product. So, and then where we find ourselves right now is we're doing this. This is going to be the first merch T-shirt, and it's just a giant Jax logo. I like big logos, obviously. And what we need to do in our point here is to have the fans. There's a number of people who continually, week by week or every other week, order stuff from him. We're going to start to give them Jax Sauce T-shirts, and especially as the weather's getting nicer, and we're going to have, we're trying to have a little bit of guerrilla marketing here in terms of people walking around with these shirts on, and what is that, and then just generate a little bit of a buzz. Eric does a lot of event type things in pubs or in restaurants, that kind of thing, where they feature his sauce, and gets a lot of attention that way. In addition to that, these are coming. These are the things that we want to do as well. This is specifically for Eric. This whole thing with Janzen, but and that's just a heart thing for him. But again, just the product tees, that kind of thing. It's like Webflow, but on on their tees on a minor level, a very minor level. And then lastly, here's where we are right now. You can see the Jax Sauce website. We've been working on that just in terms of how that relates to the branding right now as it evolves. What do we do? How do we do this? There isn't anything started in Webflow yet, but it's coming. And it's going to be, well, I'm the designer. The designer in me is saying, this is going to be the best one I've ever done. I want this to be a showcase for him, and a point of like a rallying point for his tribe that he's building. So that's what's happening with so far with Jax. But this progression of Jax is a little bit herky-jerky compared to what I typically do with companies when they're asking me to consult with them on their brands. That's a whole lot more systematic than this one, because this is 4 years. What you see here is 4 years in the making. So I'm popping off of this.
Okay. Oh, you're about to down here. Okay. We were wondering about that at first. That looks so good. And the other thing I was going to say about it is I really like how you tie in a story. I feel like a lot of good branding is a branding that has a story.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a really good story to Jax, but I won't go into the whole thing. You'll see it on the website. But yeah, story. It's big. It's big. People want to be a part of the story, right? I mean, from Nike to Apple to you name the big brands. I associate with Apple because I love their story, and because I love being a Mac guy, and Nike. Back in my day, I played a lot of basketball, and I loved. yes, you will, Baltazar. I love the "just do it" as a tagline for them, because it didn't mean, even though I was watching all these professional players go out and do their thing, it's the energy, it's the be the best you in terms of what you can do up to your level. Just take it as far as you can take it. That's relatable. The NBA player versus me, not relatable. But that what their messaging and what their story is and what they allow you to internalize is awesome.
Now, talking about story, how, because because we see a lot of people leaning into design trends. Do you use those as well, or do you think that goes against going at the core of the story to bring out the branding? You think like maybe it's just too much of an external influence to do good branding?
I think some brand story need to be told in a way that's a little, I don't know what the right word is, avant-garde, something that's different from the norm, right? A little bit nutty or wacky or in your face or whatever. That's not the kind of client that I'm looking for. I think my strong point as a brand designer is cleaning up a brand, a company that already has a brand and that has put together something, but it's just not working. I'm really good at coming in and saying, let's tweak this. And here's what I'm thinking we should do. And this is your story. This is not telling you a story. Let's work that. Let's work it in whatever way we need to do it. I think that trends are great when they're meaningful to the purpose for why they are created, or at least what they're using them for. I tend to be more on the clean side, although I do like every once in a while to just kind of, what would I do if I wasn't, such a clean designer? And then I make myself laugh because it doesn't turn out the way that, I'm looking at some of the other people that are doing these websites that are just, I can't, it takes work. It takes a lot of work for me to get to that point. And I'm not proficient so much in that as the whole idea of cleaning up what needs to be done.
Right. Yeah, going from something already or something existing and progressing from there rather than starting from scratch. You don't find it easier to start with like from scratch? Do you find it easier to like reconvert a brand?
Well, two things about that. First of all, I don't find it easier in terms of selling the client on a narrative that I'm trying to say. It's not just about how it looks, it's what it does and how it works. That's where I have to start. And sometimes that's a really hard sell because, the client's relative, this is their logo. They did it for them. And they're going, I said, I'm not saying get rid of it, but it's you're over branded. A lot of times over branding is such a thing where you've got logos everywhere and they're giants. They are not headlines. They are logos, all this kind of stuff. But on the other hand, like with Jack Sauce and some others that I went right from the beginning from scratch, it is easier because everything is, you have nothing to overcome. You get a chance to put something fresh in place. But on the other hand, I think a lot of designers that I talk to will say that feels a little hard to sometimes to focus in on what path you want to take, because the world is your oyster and all of a sudden now you got to focus in on what that means for you.
Yeah. And well, here, since we're going back to talking about the connection with clients on existing work, maybe here's a weird question. I don't know. Have you ever had those times where they had existing work and they were kind of fighting you on things that you have suggested? And because design is such a subjective thing, how did you handle criticism when that, or if that happened? And how do you resolve conflict whenever there's a design conflict with your client?
Partly that depends on whether I'm the one who has approached them or if they've approached me.
Yeah.
If they've approached me, there's a certain willingness to hear what I have to say. And that makes it a little bit easier to talk through some of the things that could be issues and problems and the way things are. And they're sometimes more receptive. If I'm the one who's doing the outreach and targeting companies I want to work for, and then doing a little something, you know, that kind of thing, which I love to do. They may be a little bit more, come with a little bit more skepticism. And then when you are saying, you know, you bring out into the conversation why you're even doing this, and what are the issues that you see and how maybe you can help them, you have to overcome, I have to overcome that natural reservation that people were saying, don't rock this boat. You know, I like what you're saying, but I don't really want to rock this boat, especially in my experience, where the founder is still in command of things, where this is the way they've always done it. And what's wrong with this color blue? What's wrong with blue? I like it. And what's wrong with you know, all the other things that they have going, or and really kind of sometimes just kind of like, well, I don't like it. They can't communicate that. So I'm trying very hard to ask questions more than saying this is this and this is this. I really want to ask questions and let them tell me. Eventually, most of them do. And then we're talking.
It's almost like therapy. You just try to like draw it out of them.
Right. Yeah, everyone has biases and everyone has an agenda, and I just want them to tell me what it is they want me to do.
Yeah. And where you, to get to this point of knowing how to deal with clients, did you ever have mentors that or people that you admired and help you in your growth, in your career growth?
I would say that there was one in particular, that small design firm that I told you about. I worked for them 3 separate times. That's another story, but I won't get into it. His name was Rich Nickel. Put that out there. Hi, Rich. I was working in another agency and as a designer, but an in-house designer. Rich came in, and they hired him to do the good stuff, right? So he came in. He's my age, and he came in and he just kind of whipped out the artboards and this and that, and kind of said, and do this and do that, and out the door again in like 15 minutes. I thought, what was that? Who was that? And I ended up being hired by him. And over the course of, probably 18 years total, 16, 18 years, we worked together. And we had a really good relationship. And we would, I don't know that we would answer each other's questions, but we sure had the same outlook on things. And that's where branding really kind of grabbed me. And it just, that guy, he worked with writers, he worked with photographers, he worked with outside people. That was new to me. Like, really? Okay, that makes sense. That time in my life, I learned a lot from him, and in turn, he learned a lot from me. He was better on the business side, and I was focused on the design and the branding side.
Right.
Although he was a designer too, so it wasn't just, me.
Yeah. And that's earlier in your career. I was wondering also, did you ever have imposter syndrome earlier in your career? And if so, how did you deal with that?
Did I have, or do I have?
Well, did you?
There are days, Maggie, there are days. Yeah, of course. When I was first starting out, I saw things just kind of when my, when the brain started to function, going like, wow, there are people doing this really cool stuff. I want to do that cool stuff. And I would emulate it, and I would try to do some of that stuff. And it took a while for me to kind of get it. But, and those were serious imposter syndrome days where like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Even now, this transition, now in Webflow, when I changed to Webflow and saw what people were already doing with Webflow, and where I was with just trying to, I worked in Muse, I worked in WordPress, I worked in some other things. I just struggled. I couldn't make things. I could do the design. I couldn't do the dev. And so I would say that there's a little bit still of that imposter syndrome in terms of when I hear there's no code north people. They're just so talented doing the things. I'll just say you, Maggie, you are such a really good at development, And that opening that we had, that you played this, at the beginning of the show, where everything was happening and all the music and all this stuff, I'm thinking, I can't do that. I love that.
I can't tell full credit for that. That was, I filled in some stuff. I can't do After Effects. That was After Effects.
Okay.
However, because we're doing everything for free here, where there are some things where we have to find a way to do it fast. But the rest, like, I mean, I did do our website and our branding, and but not the intro. I wish I could take credit for that.
I know it's not true, at least across the board, not true. That every time I see someone who's doing fantastic work, that somehow they get it above and beyond. I'm not capable of doing that level of work or something like that. There is some doubt every once in a while. It's not true, because I mean, Grace, I've listened to Grace Walker a few times on programs, and she would tell of her doubts and some of the things that she was doing. But she's very, she and others are very disciplined to, okay, if I don't know how to do this, then I'm going to do that until I know how to do it. And I'm, or I'm going to find someone who does know how to do it, and I'm going to give that part of the job to him or her, and that kind of a thing. And it just makes sense. But for me, in my little freelance world, it felt like, okay, I can do certain things, I can't do certain other things, and that's probably the way it'll always be. I'm changing that opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's hard not to have imposter syndrome when you look at what everyone else is doing, especially on social media, because they put their best work out there, and there's such an amount of amazing work out there that I wish everyone would put their work out there, so that I would feel like I'm part of the norm and not an imposter. But how, this one's kind of an interesting one too, but how do you maintain the joy of designing while still adhering to the rigor of day-to-day work and deadline? Do you ever feel like it's a bit of a grind, or have you figured out how to make it interesting every day?
It can be a bit of a grind. And, again, to be totally transparent, I'm 5 years beyond retirement age, almost. So my goal at this point in my career, most of what I have done is in the past. What I'm doing right now, I can do for the foreseeable future, and I want to do it for the foreseeable future because I think I have something to offer, but I don't want to do it. I mean, no, I shouldn't say quite like that. I'll just say I don't mind if I don't do it full time. My goal is to be at least busy enough to do half my time, not a little more, doing work that I love, that I can actually make a difference for to the clients. And then, enjoy some time not doing that, because I love photography. I love to go out and shoot. I love to do other things like that. I want to do more of that as well, but I'm not, I'm in a position here where I know that most of the people that I am talking to and that are in X, in the Webflow X, in that space, they're all building something. They're building careers, and they're building agencies, and they're building all that stuff. I'm not in that particular spot. I've done that. I've been there and I've done that. And I continue to work on top of that, but I'm not building an agency, and I'm not building for 20 years in the future. I am doing things that I know how to do, that I love, that I will continue to learn to do better in creative ways.
Yeah.
And it might not always be websites or even deep branding, maybe other outlets, creative outlets as well, side hustle type things. But at my age, that's kind of like what reality is.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice, to be honest, to not have to focus on that 20-year of having already done that, because that's the stressful part for someone who's, trying to figure out, especially for me as a freelancer, trying to figure out the next 20 years.
It is true, but on the other hand, you do have to deal with the melancholy of, why don't I have 20 more years? How come I don't have 24 or 20 more years to do this. I would love, I have not loved my love, or not left my love of design and beautiful aesthetic and business results.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you can just do that as a job.
Yeah.
And it's hard to turn off.
Yeah. But maybe because you don't have the burden of figuring, and I know but maybe that actually allows you though to choose the projects that are more meaningful, more impactful.
Oh, for sure.
Rather than like take what's there because you need it to build your business.
Yeah.
And that's going back to what's bringing you joy in your career right now, is that you get to pick a little bit better. So I'm gonna get I'll do one personal question, but we are at the end, and Baltazar had a question as well, but just a quick one, personal question. What feeds your design imagination outside of work? What inspires you? What hobbies, or what do you do that feeds your imagination?
Like I said, photography. I'm not a professional, but I have a decent eye, and I love taking shots. Every once in a while, something will come up like, man, I did that. That is awesome. And I use them in projects sometimes. I love it. It's using the same brain function and the same eye for things, only in a smaller, compact thing where I don't have to, do dev.
Yeah.
Photography is a big one. I love the outdoors. I have 4 grandkids. I love being with them, although they're in the Upper Peninsula. Where? Right here. They're on the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. And my kids, my son, Eric, obviously I work with him, or I consult him with him. I see Baltazar's question about what's it like, being with your client, or client as a son as a client. We have very much the same outlook on things, and we get along really, really well as adults, more so than when he was a teenager, frankly. But I love what he does. I believe that he's got something very viable, and his tribe validates that to me, and I get to do what I love to do. So it's not that we don't disagree, but I let him do what he does best, and he lets me do what I do best. And typically that's not always how it works. And I don't charge him. He tells me money's coming. I said, no, you do your work. Just do your work. I'll do mine, and then let's see how it all works out.
Penny and Jeremy, do you have any? We're in QA now, so if anyone has any questions, put it in the chat. And if Jeremy and Penny, if you have any questions as well.
I don't know that I have a question, but I do have.
Can't hear you, Penny.
Yeah, you sound very quiet.
Gotta put your mic down by your mouth. Kind of a thing. So I don't have a question necessarily, but I do have a comment, which is that I really resonated with your comments just a few minutes ago about being at the stage in your career, because I'm sort of in the same place. It is so easy to sometimes get really intimidated by all the work that you see people doing and all of that drive that people have. And then I have to stop and realize that a lot of them are 20 or 30 or 40 years younger than me. And they've got a long time to go, and they have to do this now. Whereas being at the end of, towards the end of my career, I can, not that I've got whacks of money, but I can be a little bit more choosy, or, that I'm not trying to build a 20 or 30 year career. I'm trying to do work I enjoy right now. So I really appreciated that, sort of pointing out that, maybe imposter syndrome, it shouldn't be the issue. It's, we're not imposters.
It's always changing, right?
Sorry, Jeremy?
The technology is always changing, and there's always, like, even within Webflow, all of the changes happened in the last year. Like, if you're working a lot, you can't even keep up with what's going on anyway. So I think everybody kind of has that. And just by the nature of being in the industry that we're in, it's always this forward motion. It doesn't stop. So it's always upgrading and whatnot, and you don't know what the next thing's coming that's going to be maybe important. Like, you know, the massive change that happened from print to even web that you went through, right, Dale? That kind of thing where it's like you don't necessarily know what that is.
Well, and the same thing now with AI, right?
For sure.
Who knows 10 years from now what this career is going to look like, right?
Or if it will even exist.
Yeah, Dale, are you? Yeah, exactly. Will any of us have jobs? Dale, are you using AI at all? Have you started incorporating that?
I am starting that journey. I've spoken with some people at Edgar Allen and other people that I've talked to that said, hey, you know, if you have any questions, just give me a call sometime. I'd love to do it. So I've been working on the business side of this, what I've been doing for quite a while to kind of get it up to where it needs to be. Business meaning the structure of the business. But now I have some time, and I'm going to be calling the people who said call me, because I don't on a daily basis seek out AI, but I have tried electric image. I have tried several other kinds of things, and it's a little bit intoxicating, frankly. It's kind of cool just from a visual standpoint, and you know, ChatGPT or GTP or others like that, where they can actually help me code. I have done some of that, but not in a masterful way, just in terms of saying, well, I really know this. No, not at all. I get happy accidents. But I would love to be able to turn some of that around in terms of production of what I do. So yeah, I'm headed there.
Oh, we have one question from Patrick. You got it.
Quick question for Dale. Are you drafting table or a flat table kind of initial sketcher?
The drafting table has gone by probably, 30 years ago. I don't have it anymore. But the yes, I'm a sketcher. I pencil on paper, pen on paper, always first before I do anything else on the computer. Okay, 90% of the time.
Do you find that has changed over time? When if you've kind of gone 10% over to computers, is that more recent?
Well, the 10% I get more bogged down because I can't do a quick sketch and, you know, 2 or 3 sketches and go, yeah, I kind of like that. And then I have something. So I always, when I do it, I always say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to go back to this. And, you know, I you know, it's the, you know, it's the old school kind of a thing, but I love the old school. I still like the smell of ink on paper, going to press OKs, all that, which I haven't done in forever. But, you know, that's just part of that's in the blood.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
So, I think that wraps up our 16th Northern Showcase. Dale, how can people find you online?
I'm active on Twitter at My Third Story. You can get to my website, which is on the screen as well, 3sc.design. And on my design is my phone number too. So if you want to talk, I'll pick it up.
Excellent.
And that brings us to the end of our 16th Northern Showcase. I'd like to thank you all for joining us and remind you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and watch for our next Northern Showcase in May with Maria and Armando from Higher Ground Studio. And join us in the Lodge next Friday, April 26th, for a high-profile workshop with Corey Moen and Timothy Ricks.
Don't miss it.
You're not going to want to miss it.
Absolutely. Visit our website at nocodenorth.com and sign up for our mailing list to receive all of our latest updates. Our mailing list is not just for Canadians. If you want to know what's going on and come to our workshops are open to everyone. Make sure you sign up. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I guess that's X, right? I guess we have to kind of give over to that.
No,
I know. Join us on Fridays in the Lodge, our cool gather space that Maggie made so beautiful. Our Lodge Hangouts are open to everyone. And until next time,
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye all.